cool, yeah, great, I got the idea, let's go. Sometimes I nailed it. It worked out. But that is the exception and not the rule by any means. Hey, welcome back. My name is Sean Lewis. I'm a creator who has ADHD, owning a company that works in the creative realm of stuff. In going to do the last video, there were a couple of things that I noticed, and this made me realize it was one of the first things that I wanted to talk about in the next video. Researching, fun, planning, and then executing. I don't like processes. These 3 steps are incredibly important, and each one feeds the other. One thing that I've discovered in filmmaking is it isn't very linear. A lot of things have to branch off and happen at the same time. In going to do the last video, I came into this space, I set up the cameras, I threw on a microphone, and I recorded it. That's the quick start part of myself. Somebody hands me an idea, and I want to get it done right away. I want to do it while it's fresh on my mind so that later I'm not finding myself thinking, what was it I wanted to do? Or, oh, now I don't have time. Like, let's just get in there and do it. Well, in doing so, I didn't do what I would normally do with client work, which is scripting and shot listing, storyboarding, beat outlines, all your camera settings, lensing choices, miking, everything that goes on. I go down that list and make sure everything is perfect, and then I test and double check, and then after all of that is done, rolling the camera on a test shoot, then coming back through and filming the real thing. So because I had just jumped on it, there are some things, even when I watched that video and it just came out last week, and I think, oh man, the audio is not great. Oh, this camera's a little fuzzy here, or that quick start thing that we have that can be a blessing, but can also sometimes seem like a curse, because jumping into it without processes that have been set in place beforehand can also be detrimental. The offset for quick start kind of is the researcher. They're the ones that kind of live on maybe opposite ends of each other. And it's usually a group effort. And researchers are doing a lot of researching before handing it to somebody that's a quick start, because they know they're just going to take that baton and run with it. Well, as somebody who was in freelance and toured in a band for a number of years, dealing with ADHD in school and no medication for it, I had to learn to really stretch and strengthen my research side of stuff, because I would often just jump on something. Oh, cool, yeah, great, I got the idea, let's go. Sometimes I nailed it. It worked out. But that is the exception and not the rule by any means. When you're doing your own work, that's one thing. It's all on you, and it's all on your idea and your own timeline. But when you're working with teachers and bosses, leaders, and clientele, it's their timeline, their budget, and it's their ideas that need to come to fruition here. So the first part of this process is research. And I'm going to explain to you kind of like what the eye-opener moment was for me. So in school, there was a test that was handed out. This is not the aptitude test story. We've already talked about that. At the top of the test, it's asking you for your normal stuff, your name, your grade. There's a brief instruction about read all questions carefully and then answer to the best of your ability. All the questions, page 1, page 2, page 3, and at the bottom of page 3, it says, if you've read through all of these, go ahead and just sign your name and turn in. You didn't have to answer any of the other questions. I discovered this and got an A on it, not because I was trying to read through all the questions because I understood that first sentence. I simply wanted to know how many pages there were so that I knew how long I was going to be bored. And I saw other people going through and answering every question, just, and then getting to the end and be like, come on, you got me, right? It was a lesson to me to take in all the information that you can before you get started with something. So number 1 is to research. The second element is the planning phase. I've been able to notice over the years how much more efficient a production or a product or, geez, anything in life, a vacation, can be if there is a certain level of planning. In my field, where it's primarily in cinematography and film and video and marketing and things of that nature, is pre-production. So those things that I missed in this first video with, scripting anything out, or I don't do a lot of scripting for this format, but bullet points probably would have kept me on track a little bit better to make sure that things were up to the level of quality that I wanted them to be before I got started. That's kind of all in that planning process. And now we've got to execute it, and we've got to execute it in a timely manner. So for me, taking it from the very last thing that you're going to have to do, turning it in to get a grade, to the very first thing that you're going to have to do in the ideation period, that is starting from the end. Hey, when is this due? Oh, it's due on this date. Okay, well, if it's due on this date, then I need to work backwards. When does the client or the teacher or the boss need to see it for the first time to have enough time to review it? And ask those questions if you have to. Okay, it's got to be at this time. So in order for that to get done on time, I need to have this in by this date. And you're putting all of this stuff on your calendar with reminders and on your watch, on your phone, on your computer, on a physical calendar, on whatever it is that you need to be able to see these things on that you will remember. Whatever tattoo you have to get, whatever it is, to remind you of these deadlines. And some of them are going to be deadlines that you have to set for yourself. They're not going to be deadlines that are set by your boss because they don't necessarily understand that creative process. The challenge is this: when you're handed an assignment or a creative brief on something, really just kind of step back for a moment. Calm the excitement over having a project in your hands and something to work on, or being super excited about the particular project. Step back. Give yourself time to look at the entire creative brief. Take a highlighter and go through and mark things that really stand out to you and make them stand out even more with the highlighter. Create your timeline for execution and then plan each thing out accordingly. Thanks again, everybody, for being here and listen to these couple of tips. You can always like, share, and subscribe if this is something that hits you, or share it out to somebody else if you know that they need to hear this advice if they're dealing with this kind of stuff. And until next time, keep creating.